Hello and welcome back to JLXP. I have a returning guest in Riot Freak. We are coming hot off the cast that we just had. The final two games of Super Week. We both came home, recorded the JLXP. I thank you for coming back for another episode. But how you feeling? How you feeling after Super Week?
Pretty good overall. It was interesting. Just like I thankfully got to experience the massive delays from home. I wasn't casting on Friday, so it's like, oh, there's a big tech pause. Okay, well, whatever. I don't have to sit there on camera and fill for 30 minutes. So I dodged the worst of it. That said, I didn't get many banger games. So like on Saturday, like there were a lot of bangers. And then I got like the EG Immortals stomps, like of just FlyQuest losing. And then today we got the last two, which like at least Golden Guardians Immortals was close, but just like 100 Thieves Dignitas is weird. So didn't get the banger games this time around, but dodged the delays. So, overall, good week.
Yeah, super weird delays on Friday night as well. It was a
faulty switch,
they said, a faulty network switch. But it's been years since we've had network lag on LCS stage. So, glad. I mean, I also missed it. I wasn't on broadcast Friday either. So I'm just like, interesting. I almost left for an hour because the last game was going to play and I was going to catch on it later. And they do the story meeting overnight. And I'm like, they actually delayed it. So I get to be on desk for 6 games the next day. But the way I actually want to start this podcast is talk about the weird game you and I just cast. The final game of Super Week, which was 100 Thieves versus Dignitas. And I said to you after the game, like, we were both kind of retroing our cast. And I said I didn't want to be too negative, but I don't know if I've ever seen 100 Thieves play that bad. This iteration of 100 Thieves play that bad.
Yeah, I think the first thing you said to me was like pretty much exactly that, right? Like they're not as bad as they played, basically. It actually reminded me of a bit of Dig 100 from Lock-In and a little bit of the 100 Thieves regular season game where Tenacity played. And it wasn't like Tenacity's fault, but like this is now like 4 games or so out of like 15 where it's just like, what are they doing? Right, which is like a pretty high hit rate, right? That like a quarter of your games just don't make sense and everyone's trolling. And like that's a really, really high rate. And I don't know why. Because it's not like, they get outplayed or wow, draft diff, like we see it's happening. It's like Avadaga just like let blue walk at him and just like Q auto E. It wasn't, I think back to when Tukoi it was Jojo Pyun and a Blaze Olive, I think. It was
yesterday.
Guardians yesterday. Yesterday. It was yesterday. And Syndra hits 6 off the wave, and then ults and kills Rise. And it's like, okay, I understand that mistake, right? Now, if you really pay attention, you should know 3 melees on the cannon wave at 6 minutes is level 6. Like, that's just the breakpoint. That's like how that works. And anyone who doesn't miss CS, that's just the timer. That's just how that works.
Yeah.
And so, it's knowable, but also like, okay, it's an error, but like it's not egregious. It's like, it's an oopsie, but whatever. In this case, it's like you're at 150 HP, like you just burned Valkyrie, like his stun is down, and he's walking at you, and you're like, yeah, QE auto doesn't kill me here. Like, how do you get that wrong, right? Like, it wasn't even close, right? He just like lets him walk up and kill him.
Neither player burned flash. Like it was just
right. He just walks up and kills him with nothing fancy happening, and it's like, literally just walk away. He wasn't arranged initially. When Biofrost killed FBI under the tower, Biofrost starts the W in vision. FBI turns around to auto the turret again to like just tank the knockup. He has Gale Force already, I'm pretty sure, by that point in time. So he could have Gale Force to dodge it. He could have flashed to dodge it. He doesn't flash until like he's stunned, Bio's on top of him, starting this attack animation. He's like, yeah, this is the time where I spam flash and dodge the auto. And it's like, this is like 7 really dumb things in the exact same play, all made together. Like this is really, really horrible. And I mean, there are even sort of larger, more aqueous things, like the fact that Pound of Thieves did nothing with some days lead. Like they got him ahead. He killed the tower at like 16 minutes in a lane where he's 2-0 or something. Just like, okay, he wasn't 2-0 because he died. No, yeah, he didn't.
He was 2-1 killed, right? By the end of it.
He was 2-1. Yeah, he was 2-1. But like, the only kills he got later were like he cleaned up Biofrost and Neo at the end of a team fight that they already lost. It's like, what are you doing with your gold lead? And like, we just like 2 games ago saw Summit on Jace, where he like was similarly ahead and took the game over. Someday was similarly ahead and like kept a 30 CS lead. And so I'm just like, I just want more out of these players. Like, these are the defending LCS champions. Like, if you're CLG at 1-8, like, I'm not mad at you unless you're doing really dumb stuff. Like, we have a 7,000 gold lead and refuse to play for Dragon Soul. This is like, you're someday, you're on the LCS champions, and you're doing nothing with a lead. You're FBI, you're the best AD carry in the league, or you're supposed to be, you were last year at least, and you're just like letting a 0-kill Tom Kent solo you when you have a mythic. Like, what is going on? You're Abadaga, and you just like let Blue walk up and just like auto you to death. Like, what is this?
It actually reminded me of a very unfocused scrim, which is really weird to happen in an LCS day. Like, and yes, it was the last game of the day, but it was like 4 p.m. So not like it's super late into the day and they would have any reason to be super fatigued. Because I actually have seen many scrims go that way, where your mid laner or your bot laner just has these like ridiculously unfocused deaths, and it actually makes the review almost pointless. Like, it feels like, bad to not mention that they happen, but like, you don't just want to pause it and be like, so what do you think was going to happen here, Abadage? Like, then you're just being a dick. Right. It's just terrible experiences. It's like a wasted game. And I think that's probably how 100 Thieves feels. There's going to be things I think they will still end up reviewing in depth, but it's going to be frustrating for them because, like, we said this during the cast as well, there were many times where the gold was still even. They were down dragons, but they had, I think, a better team comp in terms of their ability to take space in dragon. They had Corki, they had Jace, they had good poke, they had good engage technically with who he could offer, and they also didn't do those things. So on top of the bad individual play, like there's like 8 different ways I feel like they could have won that game. And because we're on the podcast, like I actually feel more okay saying this rather than like
the mistakes,
don't take credit away from Dignitas or something. And River had a good game, and I think Blue played very well. But so much more of it felt like 100 Thieves was wacky. I want to get your take on the rest of the 100 Thieves week as well, because I did a Wednesday episode, and my read of 100 Thieves was way different than 4 days ago, where I saw them coming in at 4-2, and their 4 wins were pretty solid. And their 2 losses were actually also games where they were very close in gold until the end, and then lost the pivotal team fights. So I looked at some of the more like advanced stats on Oracle's Elixir, where in terms of, I think it was, it's like gold, it's GPR, gold percentage rating, but it's basically just what percentage of gold did they hold at any stage of the game averaged. They were number 1 in the league in that.
Yeah, on average, they have a gold lead more than anyone else. It's like the layman's way of saying it. Yeah,
exactly. And I thought, like, just kind of law of averages, that their schedule is not super hard. The hardest game they're going to have is against Cloud9. I think they can eke that one out, and then they should easily win the other 2. But now that it's 3 games that they've lost off of just, like, bad mid to late game decision making on engages, I think some of their dragon setups were just not good this game.
Yeah, they weren't.
And then there was obviously the random factor with Abadage and FBI, but now that it's happened 3 times in 9 games, I'm like, this team really has to like almost reteach themselves how they want to play the game.
Right. So to talk to the point, because we were talking about this team, the macro points they can talk about is like, hey, how can we set up more for strong side, right? For strong side top lane, because we know they're like the bot dive team and they're really good at getting FBI ahead, but like, hey, you've got this Jace who's ahead. How can we play through him more, right? Like, how can we get him to comfortably hit bot lane tier 2, force an answer, and then come up from bot lane tier 2? We cast the Immortals game versus Golden Guardians, where like we saw Licorice like get bot lane up to tier 2, and then come up like around, it was like first or second Herald, right? And I was like, oh, are we going to collapse for this? And then that was miscoordinated. It's like, okay, as a team, right, Golden Guardians can learn that play better. As a team, 100 Thieves can make sure somebody's set up for success so that he can come up and make that play. Okay, well, now that Corky's answering, bot lane tier 2 or whatever, or Victor is answering bot lane tier 2, okay, we can bring him up and do something in siege mid with Jace Corky. Okay, we get something done, right? How do we get him the wards that he's not going to get 1v2 and Hecarim Dove? Let's learn that play. When Corky packaged to cut them off, they could rush down Dragon, and then no one hit Dragon. It's like, was no one talking? Right? Like, so
they were just,
there were macro plays that just could have been there. And to your point about unfocused games, you're saying 3 and 9, I'm saying 4 across 15. Like, I mean, it's the same percentage. More than any other team, they're just vacant sometimes, right? And like that's the big thing. Like, yes, there are macro mistakes, right? Like there are things they're doing wrong, they're macro mistakes, whatever. And like those are things that you can VOD review to your point. But why are a quarter of their games non-games?
It's really concerning.
Like that's like what's more concerning for me. It's that something feels broken. Maybe it's not. It's really just luck of the draw. Every team has a 1 in 10 chance at just like not showing up on the day, and they just flip tails more often, right? Ooh. But I don't know if that's true.
Speaking of like
flipping tails,
50-50 things. I didn't prep this, but I think it's a cool idea. They are 5-4. I want to do this with every team we talk about. Will their next 9 be better or worse than their first?
Oh, better.
9? You still think better?
I think better.
So you don't think? Yeah. You think the break? What is broken about them right now is going to be fixed, or variance is just going to take care of it?
I mean, I think so. Like, I don't think this is a team that actually is going to implode. Like, I just don't believe that. Like, this roster played together for over 2 years, right? Most of them played together in Golden Guardians. Then they played together in 100 Thieves. Okay, it was, I think, only one split or something like that. But, like, bringing Abadago was only one split. But, like, a lot of the other core was just the year, right? So, like, most of these players played together a very, very long time. Like, Huhi gave an interview where he talked about, like, actually wanting to spend time in academy, like with a good AD carry before he went to the LCS. Like he wanted to like play with FBI, make sure he learned the ropes, then come up. Like those two have been together for a really, really long time, So like, I really don't believe this is, and of course it's possible, right? Things can change, of course, like friendships can break down. But I don't believe 100 Thieves are internally broken.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's a lot of flukes, like more than it should have been, but I think it's a series of flukes, which is like a weird stance, but it's what I believe.
I don't think it's that weird at all. They're the defending champs, man. Then they still have good stats, and we're so recently off of what I think was their worst game of the year. But let's recap a little bit more of Super Week. TL didn't go 3-0. 100 Thieves didn't go 3-0. EG didn't go 3-0. All of my 3-0 teams didn't go 3-0. I have to call back that all of those predictions were wrong. But
good job.
A team that I thought was going to go 2-1 went 3-0, which was Cloud9. It's close, right? Kind of, a little bit.
Yeah, you were off by 1 for a lot of these. I mean, okay, not so much with 100 Thieves, but
with EG and TL,
Yep.
It's hard to predict 3 games in a row. Anyway, Cloud9 beat FlyQuest handily today. They beat 100 Thieves handily on Saturday, and they beat Dignitas handily on Friday. They had a very strong 3-0.
Yeah.
How do you feel about them right now?
I mean, they feel like the team to beat. So what's interesting is there's an Invent article. So here's the thing, right? So I'm going to give extra context here. I did an interview with Inven like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, you had called 100 Thieves were going to be good like back when as the winners. I want another bold predictions from you. And so I gave like my entire rundown and decided like I'm just going to like shoot my shot and talk big and just be incendiary because it's an interview. Who cares? Right, like just be kind of stupid about it. And so I said,
that's great with Twitter, by the way. Like it never.
Yeah, it's gonna go really well.
Yeah.
No, it never backfires at all. Mm-hmm. None of my hot takes have been too hot. And I basically said, hey, sorry, Cloud9. I mean, I have used the 4th best team, and I chose like fairly aggressive language, like you're gonna try, but sorry, not good enough. You're 4th place. And that was before I saw Summit like this week, for example, right? This is before like I was really sure, okay, Berserker's actually just the best AD carry in the league, because I wasn't for sure convinced. And this is all given like even before the LS firing as well. And I mean, I love that man's drafts. Like I think his champ stacks were outstanding. They didn't work out. Okay, whatever, not gonna get into that. But even without him, like Summit still cracked, Berserker still cracked. Fudge is still, I think what he's saying now is he wants to be the best by playoffs. Although I don't feel like he's improving at the rate he thinks he's improving. Whatever, like those other players are still so good that, this is a really, really scary team. This team looks amazing, right?
Yeah.
So it's them and TL. And so what I wrote on Twitter after their match was, I think only Core JJTL is the better team. So what I remember him saying was it was personal time this week off only. But like if for some reason Core's out again, and like it's more and more and more going to be Ayla, like there is a difference in skill there. And I think, Core is a difference maker here that makes him better. So, otherwise, like I think I take Winsome and Berserker to win bot lane over Hans and Ayla, right? Like I think I take Summit over Bwipo. Now Bwipo's really inventive, but like I probably still take Summit there. I take Bjergsen probably, but like jungle I probably favor Blabber, right? And you go pound by pound, you're like, yeah, until you put Core in the bottom lane, I think it's like 3-2 or 4-1 in favor of Cloud9. So yeah, it's probably the better team, right? Until you're like, well, but here's Core Hans. I was like, okay, best bot lane again, right? So like I think you need that difference to make that the case. So with or without him, that's 1 and 2. And like those 2 trade positions. And then okay, it's 100 Thieves, EG, Golden Guardians. fighting for third.
Right. I mean, after this week, they got to play an extra game, but I would say week 1, 2, 3, 4, ranking them, like week 3 was their worst. They had the CLG loss and all the drama. This was easily their best to me.
Yeah.
Of any of the 4 weeks. And it makes the team scary. Like, even Fudge, because we were doing our like player of the week voting. Summit won player of the week this week for week 4 of LCS because he just had like the Gnar game where he solo killed Fake God's Jace twice. There was the Champions Queue context as well, where Summit just absolutely dumpstered the other side of the matchup, and everyone at that point was like, "Oh yeah, like Jace just beats Gnar," which is true, by the way. Like anytime a team is setting up an R pick, they're banning Jace, even all the way to last year. When you're a good Jace, that's just kind of the way it goes. So to do that to Fake God was impressive, but then to also have his Jace game against Kumo, where he just is like 100 CS up. It was such a ridiculous week for him. But Fudge, actually, in the FlyQuest game today was 4-0-8. In his Rise game against 100 Thieves, he was 6-1-14. And then in his Ari game against Dignitas, he was 7-0-2. So, like, KDA-wise, Fudge had a phenomenal week. He didn't have the flashiness, and oftentimes he was showing up a little later after someone had made a play. So I don't think it's unjustified that he didn't win Player of the Week. But he actually had a really good week in mid lane. Everyone on Cloud9 was just super stable this week.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he handled blue pretty well. Abadaga, I mean, it feels like he's had kind of an off week, but the fact he didn't, punish anything, that went pretty well. And then Tukui, I mean, I guess has been hit and miss, but none of these feel like, volatile pop-off laners. Like, I think, if you look at him against Jojo Pion, like, I think the guy actually probably pushes Fudge a lot more and it gets more exciting. But this is one of the things that I'm going to turn it into Jojo and turn it into talking about EG a little bit because it's still a team I have a lot of faith in. Is that, I mean, this is JoJo saying in interviews, like, yeah, every mid laner is just like so passive. They just like let things happen. We just trade farm back and forth. And JoJo's like the one player who's like actually really push stuff. And we saw it today in Blue versus Abba, where like, right, solo kills under the tower. But like JoJo solo killing a Blaze Olive with level 6 spike, right? Like, I remember in the lock-in finals, JoJo versus Bjergsen, he had CS leads every single game. He's playing Salus and a TF or Salus and a Zillion, and like he's pushing Bjergsen on a tower. He's getting 6 first. He's able to match roams with the ulti, but TL's team is better, so they 3-0'd that one. But it's like the one player I've seen like actually like craft a mid diff. Outside of like someone hard inting something, right? Or, getting the roam off better where, okay, well, Nautilus landed the flash hook, so I guess we're winning mid lane now. It's like the only player I really see like make mid leads.
I agree with that.
I feel like mid's super stale otherwise.
I want to talk about EG right after this last point about C9.
Okay.
Summit and Berserker in terms of import pairs. So even this year we have Hans Bwipo, which is actually actually also on the S tier.
Very high.
But like going back, and this is sometimes where I'll like completely forget about a team. So this is where YouTube comments and Twitter are really great. But like this Berserker Summit import pair gives me Huni Reignover 2016 import pair flashbacks where they just seem to be a step above everyone they're playing against. I don't actually like Hans and Bwipo are super damn good, and I like Bwipo's been 1 or 2 on my like way too early MVP every single week, and Hans has just been consistently getting ahead of people with a merry-go-round of supports. But if there's a way that this like C9 thing is true, where you say like, if they're the team to beat, I'm still gonna say TL's the team to beat, because I predicted them to go 16-2, and Corey's got to back me up and win the next 9. But if C9's the team to beat, I think it's going to be because of like the legendary performance of Summit and Berserker, who have been so incredible so far.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the next time those players meet, because I'm trying to like look back, like when was the last time Cloud9 played TL? What was that result? And like what did it even look like?
Kill one.
And this was week 2, right? So this was the Aurelia mid game where Cloud9 played it really, really close, and then there was the team fight like just after Baron where C9 over forces.
It was Karthus Splatter as well.
Yeah, okay. And so Bwipo like kind of carried because he landed a lot of good casks that stopped the channels, or again, just like he was just playing it too close. Like some of them were good by Bwipo, some of them were bad by Blabber. And then off we went, right? So the rematch I'm very excited for. the rematch in the LCS finals, inevitably, I'm very excited for. It does
the
not
two
feel like
times
any
they play in the
teams.
playoffs, once in the winners final, once in the grand final. If we're gonna like get overly projective
Yeah.
about it,
But here's the thing, like I don't think I've seen at the end of the first round robin a 2 game gap like at this, right? Because we're 9 games in. It's hard to be more than a couple games apart, and it's like 7-2, 7-2, 5-4,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like you're not making that up easily because Xenon and TL both feel very consistent because when's the next time Summit's gonna lose lane? When's the next time Berserker's gonna die for a stupid reason?
yeah. Next
Like
time he plays
very, very
Karthus,
rarely.
really.
Yeah, sure, right? So it's like, well, they're gonna keep popping off. Like Hans and Whip are gonna keep being really huge, and I mean Bjergsen's incredibly consistent, right? So it's like those teams are gonna keep collecting wins for the most part. Like they're not gonna make up 2 games with how inconsistent 100 Thieves, FlyQuest, and Golden Guardians, the 5 and 4 teams all are, right? There's no way they win that race for the next 9. Maybe 100 Thieves like gets it together and they make like a 7-2 or an 8-1 run. Like I think it's possible for them if they clean things up. But like those teams are staying 1-2 until playoffs. I feel like that's like they just feel so much better than the other teams.
I agree. That's my half a split feeling as well. To continue wrapping up Super Week, we have C9 being the only 3-0 team. TL was very close with their 2-1, but there's a lot of 2-1 teams. Golden Guardians, Immortals, CLG, EG. EG super close to being 3-0. They did the hard lifting and then fell to CLG today in what was also a really weird game. It was a game where you and me kind of like looked away for a second. We saw Impact was 6-0, and then we looked back and Zeri had a bunch of gold and was just winning team fights. But a weird loss for EG. Overall, though, let's talk about them on the week.
Yeah, I actually walked past them. Impact and Danny were talking in the hallway, so I was getting ready for the cast because that was game 3, and I was heading in for game 4.
Okay.
And it's always interesting, like seeing what you overhear in the hallway.
This
and,
was
people talking about
post-loss?
This was post loss, right? Okay. And so Impact is trying to be like, "Hey, Danny, I disagree with something." So the difficult thing is with an accent, I couldn't tell which one he's talking about. I heard either Sona or Senna. I'm assuming now it's probably Senna. But he's like, "Yeah, when they pick this lane, like you need." I'm just gonna assume it was actually Senna. Yeah. The difficulty is, I think Senna looks pretty good there in that lane. The problem is farm Senna got nerfed really heavily, and so when you go early Nautilus, that probably should have been early Senna, right? Like. If I play the draft back, Zeri Yumi was locked in by 1-2-3, right?
Yep.
And then Nautilus was picked on 3.
Yep.
There are enough engaged tanks. You can find someone to play the farm lane and play Senna alongside it. Right? Like, so I think that draft could have looked a lot better. I assume, the coach Peter Dunn is talking with the players and oh yeah, I want Nautilus here, and Vulcan's like, yep, and I think Nautilus is good into Yumi lanes, right? Like in general, the counter to a Yumi lane, is to attack it with a tank support, because if you kill one, you kill 2. Right? And you only have the AD carries tools to get away. And so if Nautilus lands the anchor, then the auto, then the E slow and ignite is on, like that champion just kind of dies if you can force the lane down. So just, I understand why they picked the way they did, but yeah, it turns out you probably don't want Nautilus to be CSing. I think, a set or whatever else, Farm Leona I think could even be fine. She actually scales okay with gold.
Yeah.
But just like, yeah, they only attacked the lane once. They only got 1 kill out of it because they failed to like finish the dive onto the Yumi. And yeah, they don't have the right 80 carry matchup for it either, really. So eventually they just like stop doing anything. And as soon as you get Triforce, Zeri wins the lane, even though she was down in CS. Yumi scales infinitely. So now the 2-on-2 is better, even from behind in gold. And whoops, we've drafted the wrong way around this lane. And for a team that like purposely banned Caitlyn away and left up Zeri, like your red team, your job was already banning Zeri, right? Like, how did you not have this ready? Then like I circle back to like, how did you not have the answer ready then, where Impact's like, oh yeah, you got to pick this champion in the lane. Where was this in draft prep?
Yeah, 4.5 bot lane bans in that game. COG banned Aphelios, Jhin, Karma. EG banned Ahri, Jinx, Caitlyn. So 480 carry bans with Zeri still up feels like you're setting a trap card, but then the counter just didn't, like, is it really Kai'Sa?
No.
It's not. Yeah, so I agree. Something weird happened there, and it's interesting that you saw that interaction backstage with them. Those are the things that you also aren't able to track when you're just looking at the overall standings at like 5 and 4. I'm imagining something like that happened to Golden Guardians as well yesterday when they gave up first pick Aphelios and then ended with like Jhin Thresh. I think this is going to be an overstatement. any draft that ends with Jhin Thresh was a mistake somewhere.
Yeah.
I just think that's true. I think Thresh is good with the hypers. That's kind of when you'll do Felios Thresh, you'll do Jinx Thresh, you can do even Varus Thresh can work at some point. I don't think Jhin Thresh is a thing.
Yep.
Jhin goes with the CC bots. He goes with the Leona, the Rakan, and the Nautilus. But I'd be interested to actually go back and say, like, anytime there's like, as a duo, they probably suck together.
So here's some interesting data. I know pro pick rate data is always weird because there's only so many games.
Yeah.
So if you look at not just top leagues, so any coordinated league at all, right? So ERLs, any academy, everything, right? Jhin is like the lowest win rate of all the big champions, right? So Jinx, Aphelios, and Co. like all have higher win rates. You look at just top 4 regions, right? So LCS plus, and Jhin is a 40% win rate across 106 games. Now, again, you can have behavioral biases where like bad teams pick Jhin, and so he has a lower win rate than he's supposed to. But like, that still means they're picking wrong, right? That like, if you're getting saddled with Jhin, you've screwed up somewhere, either in draft prep or he's just actually not good. So like, there are some mistakes going on of the common picks. Like, he's really not doing that hot. So Zeri's doing really well. Jinx is doing really well. Interestingly, Jinx is winning way more than Aphelios, so it seems like everyone's priority on Jinx over Aphelios has been accurate. Whether you're looking at all leagues or just top leagues. And again, win rate pro data is always asterisk for sure.
Yeah.
But like, it seems to mean that like this priority has been correct.
Do you have a analyst tier on Games of Legends?
No, I don't.
Okay. I can't do it now. I'm going to resubscribe. When I was on TL, I spent the $9 a month, the trivial amount of money when you're a professional league analyst.
Right.
It's actually really useful for stuff like this because you'll be able to check. Like I'll be able to go and look at Jhin with different support pairs and see the win rate over an aggregate of like 6 years of pro games.
Oh, interesting.
Which is super useful if it's actually statistically significant, because you actually start to get the samples that are big enough. And I apologize for baiting everyone.
I do solo queue because it works well enough.
Yeah, I'm going to end up tweeting
most
this.
matchups don't change. Yeah,
I'm going to end up tweeting this, but you're going to look up the op.gg and tell me in a second. So, okay, that I think mostly covers us on EG. I was overall happy that they at least kind of turned it around, right?
So Jinx Thresh, Jhin Thresh is Jin's literally lowest win rate support pairing.
In solo queue.
Literally the lowest
Perfect.
in solo queue.
Yeah. The expectation matches with reality. Good. It's probably worse than pro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was happy EG came back a little bit because I didn't want to see them tilt into oblivion because I think they have a really good core. And they're a team where I also expect their second half to be better than 4 and 5. I don't expect them to be an 8 and 10 team by the end of it. I think they'll at least be 500. But I want to give some screen time here to Golden Guardians. They're 5 and 4. They were very close to being 4 and 5. They do have a consistent weakness, which is their mid game. There is a lack of coordination. Those are not things that magically fix themselves. They're not necessarily things that are guaranteed to be fixed given work. But there's a lot of ingredients, so to speak, of them doing well. I think Lost has been really underrated in terms of his performance. He had another big game today. The Licorice point you brought up about him being a really strong laner is actually backed up by the stats when I went to look at it as well. And then I think Blaze Olive has been a high performer. I actually just have good things to say about almost everyone on that team so far. They're greatly outperforming my preseason expectations of them so far. How about you?
Yeah, I'm looking across all the individual games. Yeah, I think they're doing really, really well. I'm happy they're doing well. I've been a Golden Guardians fan ever since they signed Danon and Enero. I've said that every single time because I'm just a big fan of those two. I think they've done a really good job. I said it briefly on the cast that when that whole roster they built went to 100 Thieves, the one they built over the last year and a half, and it was looking really, really good. They beat TSM in the playoffs. They 3-0'd them the first time. They nearly 3-0'd them a second time. It could have been Golden Guardians going to Worlds that year. Just everything was going their way, and then they're 100 Thieves. Right? Then they have to rebuild. And it's they're rebuilding with probably no budget. They're rebuilding late because they don't realize their entire roster's going away. And so it's they had the... Yeah,
and they had the... But it's
they had the iconic Niles... Right, they had the iconic Niles option. It's okay, that didn't work very well. And so they go version 2, and it's they're in playoff position right now, right? They're tied for third. Golden Guardians, yes.
They're a game out of 8th. Tied for
They've
third.
all played the same teams.
Yeah.
And they're tied for third. This isn't straight to the schedule. They all played the same teams and are tied for third. So, like, what if they do it again, right? Like, if they do it a little bit better. I'm looking across all their games they played before the Super Week, and it's like their first 2 games they lost. They opened up a 2,000 gold lead up against Cloud9, and they probably could have won that one. They were up 2,000 at 13 minutes. Okay, it was a comeback win. They lose against FlyQuest. They were up 7,000 at 31 minutes. Probably should have been a win, right? So just those 2 games, which, like, at those points in time, they're, the Cloud9 was probably like a 70-30. I would say like 2K at 13 is probably 70-30. I would say 7K at 31 is like 90-10. This team is probably supposed to be 7-2, and Cloud9 is supposed to be 6-3. Right? If you just play those out the way they're supposed to go, like assuming like that got cleaned up, and yeah, that means they're a better team than they really are to actually close those games out, right? They did make those mistakes, but it's like, oh, actually they're tied with TL. Cloud9's a game behind them, and it's like, oh yeah, here's Golden Guardians, the best team in the LCS, right? Like, because they also beat TL. Right?
Yep, they did.
Right? So it's like, at what point you're like, imagine you play those games back out and you're like, oh yeah, that's actually just them. I'm looking across the games, like they stomped C9, or sorry, they stomped CLG, they stomped TSM. Their last 100 Thieves, they got completely demolished. They beat Dignitas, that was a stomp as well. So like, since that point in time, like since those first 2 weeks, it's like up and to the right, they get stomped or they win. We haven't had those throws until this game we just had. But like, yeah, imagine that first week, because the team didn't play lock-in, right? They didn't get those games in because I think they didn't have Pride Stalker here, or they didn't have Ole, I forget which, but like they didn't have the whole squad. So like, what if they had played lock-in and had ironed those kinks out 2 weeks earlier? Do they close that game out against Cloud9? Do they close that game out against FlyQuest? Are they 7-2 in a world where they had Visas on time?
Right.
That feels realistic.
I want to see how hot you get with this Golden Guardians take. And it's
okay.
It's somewhat similar to another thing you and I discussed to do on this podcast, which is talking about which teams are better than their record and which teams are worse than their record. And it also stems from something I heard on the Bill Simmons podcast like this week, where he had a guest on and he was talking about how he doesn't like the idea that people have of there being a best team, and the best team is the team that wins the championship. Like, oh yeah, they were the best team the whole time, and then like this proves it with, say the Milwaukee Bucks last year, when in reality, like Kevin Durant, you don't know this, but there was a game tying 2-point shot that Kevin Durant hit against Milwaukee where his foot was like, you can see on the camera, like literally this far on the 3-point line. If he's a third of an inch further back, it's worth an extra point, and Milwaukee is out. Milwaukee cannot win the championship, right? And what he said is like, he doesn't think there's a best team. He just thinks there are a certain number of teams, and then variance will end up producing a winner at the end of it. And the game is just to have enough assets that you can be a contender in that sense. So this is what relates to my Golden Guardians take. At the start of the year, I said there are 4 teams that are playing for the title and other people are playing to overperform. It was Cloud9, TL, 100 Thieves, and EG, because EG had just had that huge lock-in performance.
Yeah.
Do you think, within variance, Golden Guardians could win the LCS?
Within variance, can they win the LCS? So let me think about like, okay, can they get to a spot where they aren't facing Cloud9 or TL before they play each other? Probably not. Okay, yeah, sure, 1%, but I'm gonna say, has to be 10% or more for me to say it's realistic. I think in more than 90% of cases, C9 and TL remain enough above Golden Guardians that they're like Golden Guardians meets one first, right? So okay, is there a world where 100 Thieves tanks enough that they play TL early and then overperform in the best of 5? Yes. And then is there a world where Golden Guardians then meets 100 Thieves? Yes. Like, I think that is an unlikely road. And then here we are, Golden Guardians in the winter bracket finals against Cloud9. I think that is not likely, but very possible. Like, if that happens, I'm like, oh, I see it. Right? Because we know 100 Thieves are very variant, and their highs are high enough to beat TL, and their lows are low enough to lose to Golden Guardians. Absolutely, right? Like, I think everyone would agree that like that's objectively true right now. And then, okay, you make all the way to the finals. Is Golden Guardians good enough to win a best of 5 against C9 or TL? Like, switch those teams, right? Who cares which one they are? A best of 5 once, maybe. Twice, no. I don't think they finish it and go to MSI. Like, I don't think they're their point. I think if the whole playoffs was best of one, yes, right, of course. I think if it's a best of one, Dignitas could win the LCS. But that's the point of an 18-game regular season where you've got enough to be confident you picked the right teams into playoffs. And once you've picked the right teams into playoffs, double elim best of 5 will give you the best or good enough team. Like, you don't fluke your way into winning a double elimination best of 5 bracket. You don't. Like, you deserve that at a certain point by playing too poorly or playing well enough. Like, that's just the end of the statement. I know there's like been some talk about best of 1 versus 3 a little bit, but like as long as you pick the right teams into playoffs, which you will when you take half the teams and play 18 games, then like, you know, the best team will win. I agree with the point about you know, teams have a power level and like there's variance, and you will decide at the very end of the day who ends up winning. I agree with that completely, right? Like I'm totally on board with that. That is how I view teams as well. They have a power level and they have variance, and some teams have more variance than others. You know, I think Golden Guardians have very high variance, right? They can beat TL and lose to teams like Dignitas. I mean, they like, really could have lost that game, right? They can lose to teams like CLG. They can win and lose against literally every team in this LCS. Because they are very high variance, and their median is like a 6, right? Or maybe a 7. Like they're you know, a good team who can play at a 2 or a 10.
Yeah. I just wanted
to
check.
And Team Liquid's at an 8 or a 9 who can play at a 10 to a 7.
Yeah. That's the whole like ceilings and floors conversation. But I mean, I made a huge mistake. I put them 10th in my power rankings, and even as I did it, I knew it was wrong. Like I even said in the power ranking, I'm like, Golden Guardians actually never finishes 10th, right? Like,
well,
they're in
previous iterations did.
In spring of 2021 they didn't, but then they pulled it back at the end of the year. So like they're extremely good at, I guess, overperforming the low expectations that are set for them. And yeah, I shouldn't have done it. I should have put someone else below them. 100%. They are the team that I was the most off on. So based on how I actually have a very positive view of them now, and I think that them repeating their 5 and 4 is actually very likely. I think it's a decent chance they can be 10 and 8 and be like but I'm also on the fence there, right? Like that's why the thought came into my mind of, well, if everything really went well, could they? And I don't think the answer is yes. I don't think Summit and Berserker would lose a best of 5 to them. I don't think the TL
Summit will absolutely clap Licorice. Berserker will clap Lost. Like that's going to happen. Across the best of 5.
We think.
Right. Yeah. There was always a chance for a floor, right? Like it is not 100-0 in a best of 5, right? There is a chance they completely crater and it happens. Like the chance that Golden Guardians win the LCS is not 0. It is just less. It is far less than 3% to me.
Okay.
Across other teams, you talked about preseason expectations. I initially had TSM as not playoffs, so at least I got that one right. I didn't have them as 10th, to be fair.
So were they the biggest underperformer based on your expectations?
So I mean, I had
2 weeks
TSM
ago you
as
also
7th.
said 2 weeks ago you also said 3 and 15. So you got a couple of things you can check up on. Let's check up on your preseason rank of TSM versus where they are now, and then how you feel about your 2-week-old prediction of TSM.
I think 3 and 15 is still possible. I actually think this is the case where TSM should actually make roster changes, right? So, TSM, they chose a direction for the team. I know Parth was on the desk and talked about how like, this is basically like a whole new look for the squad, right? Like so much of the staff of the League of Legends sort of vertical, right? League of Legends TSM is just different. It is a new crew in the way that CLG is a new crew, right? Like everyone from CLG is different from this year compared to last year. It is a new team called CLG, owned by the same parent company, but like it's an entirely new thing. And they're one spot above where they were. TSM, it's an entirely new TSM. What they did? Well, unfortunately, this didn't look like a good look, right? Reggie signed off that this is the direction for this year. Unfortunately, not a good one. I think you should pivot. You look clearly like the worst team. My mind actually says, hey, your import risks didn't work. I know I've usually been really negative on foreign language imports because I think it can be really hard to integrate, either because they don't like living in America. I mean, Perk's an example who even speaks English and didn't like American culture, really, right? Like he didn't like his time here. He wanted to go back to Europe. Less about his teammates, but more about the environment, which is like understandable, right? It's not for everyone, of course not. And the culture shock is, I think, even harder when you're not from Western Europe. Right, like that's like Western Europe is much closer to the U.S. than China and South Korea, right? For the most part, like that's just kind of true. I think there's so much volatility. Like, what if Cloud9's imports don't work? What if TSM's imports don't work? Like that's a high chance of not working. That's why I'm low on non-English speaking import talent because of culture shock and coordination. Cloud9's work is working. right? Like Cloud9, like they picked some good folks, and those guys are doing really, really well. TSM's the other side, where like both Shenye and Kaiduo aren't doing very well, right? And like Huni, Tactical, and Spica were all top 3 All-Pro last split. This should work well together. I actually would say you also now go replace Kaiduo. You look for a free agent mid laner. If you're willing to spend, like, go look for Niski or something, right? Go grab some teammates that like can do well in NA. I mean, Niski to me, like, it's just like I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's very, very good. Slot him in and let's go and pick up some wins. But
I don't think
I would do Sky is Falling, switching it around.
Yeah.
Could they not?
I like this discussion though, because I'm kind of with you. I'm expecting them to make changes. I just have no idea what they're going to be. 2 weeks ago when we were talking about like what the breaking point for TSM would be, I said like what I think the breaking point would be if they are winless going into the CLG game and then they lose to CLG. I think that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back for like Reggie to just really get aggressive on involving himself with the league team. And like 1-8 and 2 games alone in last, that's it. Like I have like a really mean follow-up tweet. You know the meme that's going around with Reggie, like, there's no effing way I'd let the team ever become CLG out, blah, blah, blah. They're not like CLG. They're actually just much worse.
Yeah. They're 1/3 the wins of CLG. 1/3 as many. You are 1/3 the team CLG is. That is a shock for everyone who's been following League since ever, because since CLG won in 2016 spring, I believe CLG has been beneath TSM every single split since then. I'd have to fact check that. There's probably 1 or 2 where it's been different, but like
there's one that's off. It is I have it. I just want to confirm. It is 2019 summer. CLG was 3rd, and TSM lost to Clutch in quarterfinals. But that's like the only time.
Oh, and then Clutch went to Worlds. Like, was that one where like CLG lost the Worlds qualifier match to go, and then Clutch went?
Yeah.
And it was like the best 0-6 NA team we had. Yeah. Okay. So there was the one time that CLG won the 3rd place match, and yeah,
because they had PoE.
Okay.
The beast.
Yeah. He's good. PoE is actually good.
Unstoppable force.
Yeah. At some point, people will ban it when they decide they want to get wins against that team. But for now, let them ride it. Yeah. But yeah, so it's like, okay, yeah, it is rare form, right? TSM went from never miss a finals to never miss playoffs to, with one exception, always better than CLG, to 1/3 the team CLG is, right? Like, and not even using CLG as a measuring stick. Like, unfortunately, this is their 5th split in a row where they're bottom 2, right? Like, even then, like, they're still not quite getting together, so that's unfortunate. I think the ceiling is still higher. I had CLG. I was actually, CLG is the team that is most disappointed in my expectations, because I had CLG as the other playoff team. Okay. So I had Cloud9 4th. I had, everyone thinks TSM's good. No, it's not them. It's Immortals and CLG make the cut. And unfortunately, Immortals and CLG, I mean, Immortals are 4 and 5. They're 1 behind playoffs. In fact, they're tied for 6th. They're kind of in. But CLG is, alone in 9th. So those are the 2 that I had as playoff teams that aren't playoff teams. And so that, like, to circle back to your answer, those are the 2 that have, even though they're off by like 1 or 2 games, have missed my expectations.
Cool. Thanks for that. I think there's just like a slog in the middle of the standings, like FlyQuest, Golden Guardians at 5 and 4, Dignitas, Evil Geniuses, Immortals at 4 and 5, CLG literally only 1 game back from that group, and then TSM's the team that's going to have to make the most ground. I still think that I don't. This is 4 weeks from now, I'm going to say this is the dumbest take I had. I don't think TSM's going to finish the season in last.
Okay. Is it because of swaps? They grab a player and they make 3 games up on CLG?
I think they will do a swap. And I think there will also be a team that craters that's not TSM that they're going to be able to pass.
So TSM must do at least better than 3 and 6. Like if they go 3 and 6, they pass CLG, assuming CLG goes 0-9.
Yeah.
Assuming CLG picks up a win, they have to do more than 3 and 6. Otherwise, they're still tied for last.
So here's what I'd want to see them do. And people listening should also know that like mid-split transactions in League of Legends esports are really, really hard. It's not like the NBA or something where there are, 2nd round draft picks you can throw in and teams have all these extra roster slots laying around. There are very ambiguous buyouts where owners can kind of set their price in a lot of cases. Every contract is going to be different. It depends on how it was signed. But I'd imagine a lot of the academy players that TSM might target, they will then be forced to like drastically overpay a buyout in order to get that academy player is like likely $60,000 a year contract, which is just like makes it really difficult. A player like Niski, who would technically be available, I don't think he would have American work authorization. So by the time you get that done, the split's over. Like maybe they could start the process for Niski now, but then he wouldn't be then he'd be a summer split thing. The other problem for TSM is that their academy team is also not that good. But here's my take. Their building blocks of tactical Spica Huni, they're like 3 residents. They haven't necessarily been playing that well, but I think they're still solid. So I don't think you make changes there. Surprisingly, I actually think Kaido has been very absent in so many of their games. And all the conversation's been about Shenyi, all the conversation's been about like Spica being like a PR person and not, and like all this other drama. Yeah. He's dodging a ton of stuff. So I would like to see them explore some of the highest performing academy mids. They should at least make a call to Jensen just to see what's going on, what level he's currently at, if there's any interest. And they should start doing those things. I would like to see them swap, for now, the mid and support. I know that abandons their whole structure, and it messes things up. But literally, guys, they're 1-8. That is not acceptable for TSM. It is less acceptable for TSM than it is for most orgs, based on my read of their culture right now. So we'll see. There's not much time. That's the hardest thing. And anything I mentioned is very, very hard to pull off. So there's a high chance that nothing changes because they're going to be getting ruthlessly criticized no matter what they do.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I was about to try to look up. I don't have a finger on the pulse of. Yeah, but I don't have my finger's not on that pulse, so it's too much effort to find it and then be informed in time for this podcast. So it's not going to happen. But I think you look around at academy because it's not probably from your academy team because they are in last place, right? That's not the look.
They could try takeover. I don't think he's a bad player. They should at least be experimenting in scrims if they're not going to make a transaction.
You're right. They should at least experiment. You're absolutely right about that one. I don't know if he's trying to carry and he's the reason to even have any wins at all, or if it's actually I just don't know, so I can't comment. But I agree they should at least try, right? And then from there, who's open, who's got a slot. Because yes, you must do something. There's no way the status quo ends up with you anything but 10th place. I mean, obviously there's a chance, right? But it doesn't feel like it's going that way.
Percentage chance TSM finishes last.
70. 70%. I mean, again, unless you get a sick transaction.
Wrong. Yeah, I don't think it's that wrong.
Right.
I'm gonna say 45.
The unknown unknowns. 45. Okay.
Even though probability wise, I'm kind of banking on them pulling something off.
Because the expectation, realistically, is that TSM goes 4 and so by the way, this counts tying for last, right? If they and CLG and Immortals are all 4 and 14, that's still last place, right?
Yeah.
So if they go 4 and 5, they go to 5 wins. Okay, CLG can't win 2 and Immortals can't win 1. And that's if they go 4 and 5 and get to 5 wins. They go 4 and 5, including stepping on CLG, and CLG goes 2 and 7. That's still tied for last. So they have to really get above that. That means they probably have to go 5 and 4. Is TSM going 5 and 4? Almost never.
You're probably right. They're in the cellar,
CLG
man.
Implodes, right?
They're in the cellar.
If CLG implodes, 3 and 6 is good enough. But I don't think they implode.
All right, maybe summer split. But we'll see.
Maybe summer split.
I'm waiting for the news.
We're wiping the records, right? We're back to wiping the records, so summer split stands alone.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the news.
Yep.
I think there'll be...
Yeah.
I am shocked if something isn't different. Whether it's they bring in this assistant coach, they shuffled around titles, they bring back Shenyi, they move in takeover. Any Spica, anyone could change. Nothing would shock me after a 1-8 start. Let's do awards.
Okay, great.
We're halfway through the split. Mid-split awards. We got MVP, rookie, and coaching staff.
Cool.
Let's start with MVP. My MVP for the first half is Berserker. I'm going Berserker, Bwipo, Summit. That's my 1, 2, 3.
I mean, I still keep Bwipo on the ballot. I think I probably agree that it is now... I'm not sure I'm all the way as Berserker in first, only because, would TL really even be down here at 7 and 2 if they had the whole roster together, right? I'm not saying it's Corjay the MVP, but I think TL is still maybe the best team in the league with the full roster, and that means I probably still take a TL member. Like, I need to see Bwipo versus Summit again. He won last time.
Yeah.
Like, Summit looks like a pop-off, but like only because TL was quiet this week. So I probably still have Bwipo as my number one. Because I had him last time I was on the show, right? It was 2 weeks ago. I agree it's someone on Cloud9 afterwards, right? And it's some combination or both on the ballot of Summit and Berserker. Just totally agree with there. From there, there's no one I'm willing to give to, right? Like, no team at 5 and 4 is going to be MVP vote unless you're like really 1v9ing, and I don't believe that's true. Like, Pee-wee's doing well, but Pee-wee's not 1v9. 100 Thieves, everyone's making too many mistakes for anyone on that roster to look like the MVP. When you compare it to like what you see out of the Cloud9 members, not a chance, right? So there are only 2 teams getting MVP votes, and in fourth place is probably Hans. Right, I haven't seen enough Core JJ. He's missed too many games. Right, he's played. Did he actually? He's only played like 2.
He's played 2.
Or did he play 2 weeks?
He's played 2.
Yeah, he's played 2 games.
Yeah,
2 games. Right. So, I mean, the fact that they're still 7-2 without him, right? Like, let's see the rest. Like, I really hope, please, that he can keep playing.
Yeah, me too.
And then we get that 9-0 run, and you get your 16-2 that you wanted, Jat. But that's the ballot. Yeah.
Yeah, I really shouldn't want them to go 16-2, like, because 2020 summer, we went 15-3, which was the best record TL ever had. So like, I can cling to that as long as they never go 16-2. But for some reason, I called it, so I like lose both ways. Rookie of the split, I think is going to be easy.
You win both ways. You either keep your title or you called it.
True.
You're playing both sides.
That's like when you bet real money against your favorite team, because then either you win money or your favorite team wins. Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
Berserker counts as a rookie, by the way.
Yeah, easy ballot.
That's over.
Yep, it's over. It's actually over. JoJo, it was a nice try.
It's actually the most competitive rookie of the split we've ever had, though, because we're going to have JoJo. Takui also counts.
Yeah,
because the LFL doesn't count as a major region,
Yep.
and the qualifier is a certain percentage of a major region's games. So yeah, we have a lot of like pop-off rookies.
I mean, that means Kaido and Shenyi should count as well.
Yeah,
Shenyi played a couple of games, but not enough
to FPX to count.
Yep. So, but I mean, obviously you're on the last place team, and it's kind of your fault. So yeah. I'm sorry to the LDL Gold mine, but apparently Gold is maybe more about the ELO they're playing at. And I don't know, it was a hot take for no reason.
You wanted
whatever,
to throw
I don't
something
care.
there. I know we were like throwing around spitballs in the caster room.
I remember people, memeing Gold V right back in the old days. So we got it. It's just a fun, Gold,
and coaching staff.
Gold Guardians.
Speaking of Gold, coaching staff of the split right now, I have Golden Guardians, but that's because they're the ones that have overperformed my expectations the most.
I always lean that way because I'm just biased. Like, I trust in Anero so much that he's always like on my ballot initially. Yeah. And like, I'll just be clear, right? I really, really think he's good, so I always lean that way. Because I think he's very, very good. Yeah, it's like, I mean, TL's doing really well, right? If you count coaching staff in, hey, they made really good offseason moves, like they grabbed good players. Unironically, still Cloud9. It's weird because I thought LS had really good drafts. Like, I love that man's drafts. I just wish he could like stay on a team, and I don't want to like get into the weeds there, but like clearly Cloud9 didn't like how it worked, and okay, fair enough. But I just wish other teams would draft like him, right? But even beyond that, it's like, well, they also, good job, right? They grabbed Summit and Berserker. Well, it turns out that team is cracked, right? So like there's a certain amount I kind of want to give coaching staff to talent scouting, because the coaches make those calls ultimately, right? Is your head coach not involved in what talent you acquire, right? So, like, that's kind of part of it. Like, especially when you're grabbing, like, yeah, you can all be like, well, of course we saw it coming. It was Berserker. He was on T1 Academy. It's like, yeah, but you got him.
But did you really?
Right?
Like, if he's the best AD carry in the LCS, like, there's going to be more competition to get him.
Right.
So, yeah, they really have struck gold, I think, with Berserker and Summit so far. But, yeah, Golden Guardians. Golden Guardians for my mid-split coaching staff as well. It'll usually end up going to the best team. Weirdly, though, because I think TL's talent is so stacked, I think Gilyoto and Cold have done a very good job with TL. I think it's hard for them to win coaching staff of the split. Like, if they go 16-2 and the next closest is like 12-6, then I think they can win it. But just kind of knowing how those votes go down, I think when a roster is that highly rated, it's hard to win the coaching award.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to that point, like, how clean do the drafts look, right? Like, if they just sail over everybody, and the next Cloud9 game is like, yeah, they walk over 'em, or vice versa, right? Like, because I'm still super entertaining, Max Waldo and co. Like, yeah, if either of those teams just like sails through, I'm like, I mean, both these rosters are stacked. Like, 100 Thieves is stacked. Like, EG is relatively stacked. Like, if you sail over all those teams, well, you coached your good players into that spot. So, I'm down to give you that. I still like the Golden Guardians Eagle. I still like and appreciate, especially if they keep improving, right? If they go 6-3 second round robin, like they're really heavily getting a nod from me, right? It's like, oh yeah, 11-7, good job.
Yeah. All right. We didn't really disagree.
We were both smart, chat. It's how it works.
It's good.
Yeah.
I've had this has been a really fun episode. Do you have anything else you wanna say?
More, watch more LCS, stay tuned. It's we start again on Saturday. Yeah, I mean, I am glad Super Week is at this break point. I was always sad about the fact that so frequently it's be like, all right, it's the middle of week 5, and we're gonna do our mid-split break and we're playing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I like that there is a lot of time to unwind. We get to go, because you get like an imperfect look 6 games in, and then you round it out. And I think it's the same way next time around, right? Where week 8 is Super Week for the last 3 games.
I think so.
Makes it look really good. I'm actually a big fan of the format like this.
Okay, thank you very much. You're going to do another patch rundown shortly, right?
Yeah, it'll be coming out Tuesday morning with the patch notes, and this video is coming out Monday morning, right? So, in about 30 hours, it won't be streamed. So youtube.com/freak, patch rundown.
Yeah. Someone memed about how the fact that that is just a way bigger channel than this one. So it's like, oh, you're giving this small patch rundown creator the time of day. Thank you, chat. I'm like, well, give it time. Give it time.
Yeah, of course. You have good content.
Okay, cool. Thanks for coming on, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.